You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red. I said on our last show, I didn't want Forest to be seen as a joke in the Premier League after so many defeats, and we'd all seen the comments about the transfers, the revolving door at the City Ground, and how everyone thought they were going down. But they aren't a joke anymore after beating Liverpool 1-0. It was another special day at the City Ground, and joining me to discuss it first of all is Reg legend Garry Birtles. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good morning. Smile on the face. I'm sure as all Nottingham has.
Yes. Are you sorted now? I had to put a post out saying that we were delayed by 30 minutes after a furniture emergency in Capital Birtles.
New furniture delivered, and trying to get it through doors is just a nightmare. Just destroyed the walls and everything, but it's in.
Good. Second guest today is the Babe Ruth of the podcast, the man who called his shot and said weeks ago that Forest would beat Liverpool without a doubt in his mind. Greg Mitchell. Greg, how are you?
I think I'm retiring now. I've had a good run. I'm not gonna push the good predictions any further, but just elated. I was just saying I can't wait to get into work later. There's a few people I need to go and see, I think. So going to be a good day.
They'll be on a sick, won't they?
Yeah. I'd imagine so. They know who they are anyway.
We need you to predict another 10 to 12 wins, I think, just to be sure. But this was certainly a good one. We should start with you, Greg, then, since you did say Forest would win. How was it? What are your overall thoughts on the day as a fan being in the ground?
It was memories of last season, wasn't it? It all came flooding back. Just spectacular. Before the game, the atmosphere building up to it, everyone going into it. There was no heads down, Cooper was saying all the right things. Just everything felt like it could be a special day, and it proved to be. And it just shows what happens when everyone's on the same page. I don't think a new manager gets that result, does he? It was just a fantastic day, and all the hard work they've done, it's just now started to click a little bit. So I'm even more excited after the result now.
Yeah, my dad sent me a message this morning from a year ago today, the game we went to as a family, my son's first game. Forest lost 4-0 at home to Fulham. So to be here now, Gary, you were in the director's box. It's obviously another sign of the progress, but not only that, it was a well-deserved win, wasn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. Thoroughly deserved. And I just thought it took everybody aback a little bit, because I was at the Wolves game. I was commentating on the Wolves game, and it was just such a hard commentary to do because, nothing really happened. I was watching three up front, and there was no movement from them. Man on the ball, you felt sorry for him because he was having to go backwards, square. And the transformation that Steve made on Saturday was just incredible. And, it just shows you when you've got an out-and-out striker up front, what a nuisance he can be as well, by the way. He makes it difficult for defenders. It reminded me a bit of Keenan Davies last season, when he was backing into Van Dijk, making his life difficult. But I thought from the first whistle, what impressed me more than anything was the pressing, how high the pressing was. It was just they gave them no time to come out from the back. I think Ryan Yates led the team superbly well. There was just not, you didn't feel there was a major weakness in the side, because if there's a major weakness in any team when you play Liverpool's, Man City's, you're going to get beat. So it needed to be, 100% everybody sort of firing on reasonable cylinders, not full cylinders maybe, but I was just so impressed. And the atmosphere, one of the best I've ever encountered down there.
Yeah, we'll come on to a few individuals as we go on. Gary mentioned two there that we really must talk about in Awoniyi and Yates. But Greg, just going back kind of after the Leicester game, Forest were a real mess in that game. Do we have to give Cooper credit for slowly changed them? I was on the phone to someone. I was on the phone to Darren Fletcher yesterday, saying it felt like the Al Pacino speech in Any Given Sunday, where he talks about fight and claw for every inch, and it feels to me like Forest have done that in the last four games, and this was the culmination. And obviously, it's got to be the start of a continuation of a process. But how much credit do we have to give Cooper for recognising that Forest were way too open and they needed to go about it a different way?
You've got to give Cooper almost all the credit. Getting that new contract for me made him maybe, sit back a little bit and think, how can I change this for long-term results? And, Wolves was a bit, like I say, it's a bit of a non-entity game, and Brighton, all the possession they had, but it was because we were working on things, and it came into fruition today, on Saturday. Like you say, the high press, how tight everyone was, the battling for every ball. We didn't give Liverpool players anything. You got players like Yates looking like he's in the trenches even before the game's kicked off, and he just got it. And I feel like something clicked on Saturday that's going to make us so hard to beat at home, especially. And we're getting the chances now. 7 shots on target, or whatever it was. I saw that our mate XG popped up on the when I was watching the game back, and it was like a few minutes in. It said we had 6% chance to win the game. So, that shows how useless that is.
Well, I was told we were 10.5 to 1 to win the game. So that shows how the bookies saw it. But I mean, two clean sheets on the trot. We're talking now. Yes, Brighton had 20 odd shots, and that was a concern. That if somebody, of Brighton's calibre, not the greatest team in the Premier League, but can have that many. But then, Liverpool set pieces were their main threat, I think, rather than creative elements in their build-up. And like I say, we looked tight at the back. Henderson, what a save that one-handed save was he made from the header. It was just an all-round, terrific performance. And Steve said it meant such a lot to so many generations of Forest fans. And I think hitting a nail on the head. That's what he sees in that football club. Just doesn't see it as a present thing. He sees it as an overall thing of, when we sort of played and even before, So he knows what it's all about. And it was great to see his dad at the game as well. So
his dad's the lucky charm, I think, by the sound of it. He hasn't seen them lose yet. I mean, do you see the makings of a team there now, Gary? Because they haven't looked like a team at times, but it felt to me there was a tactical plan that was executed in this game to force Liverpool through the middle and kind of nullify them, and it seemed to work. Do you see them on the road to a unit now, Gary?
Well, the next game is the big thing, isn't it? It's all right saying, we're all loving it. It was like we won the FA Cup at the full time. The atmosphere was so good. But, the follow-up games now have got to be, as good or nearly as good. I mean, we've got Arsenal coming up. Southampton proved that, they're not unbeatable. They got a point off them yesterday. And then the 2 games, before the World Cup starts, so important. Crystal Palace got battered on Saturday. And we've got Brentford, who got battered yesterday. So 2 teams, going into those fixtures, not full of confidence. So, massively important. The Liverpool-Arsenal games are always going to be bonus games. If you can get anything out of them, brilliant. But the 2 after were always going to be, you have to say, the ones. But now, hey, I tell you what, Arsenal won't fancy, playing against us after seeing what we did against Liverpool. Definitely not.
One thing that Gary says there, Greg, about it's just 3 points type thing, basically. It was interesting. Cooper at the end didn't do the fist pumps, which might disappoint a few fans who are in the ground because it's become like a signature. But I thought that was a really good move, wasn't it, to show it's just 1 win.
We walked. Sorry, my internet must have gone a bit then, but we walked out thinking, what happened there? But it made so much sense because he probably knew at the end of the weekend we're still going to be in the bottom 3 or bottom as we are. So I think it was a respect to the league and where we are and how much we're going to have to battle. And I'm sure in a few weeks he'll be doing them with intent because, like I say, I just think at home now something's clicked. And it was a bit of a free hit. But what we've got to remember is Bournemouth and Fulham were games that we all thought we were going to win. And I look at that now and I see Brentford and Palace to games that we should win. But it has to be just like it was, the atmosphere down the ground, because with that intensity, with everyone in the right direction, the ball boys, doing what they did, and almost, I've never seen that before, by the way. If we get onto officials, blooming hell, almost sending the lad off. He was great, but everyone was on the same page. Everyone was battling for it. And like I say, Brentford and Palace, before this massive international break, are bigger than the game we've just played on Saturday. So we've just got to remember how good it was on Saturday and take it into the next ones.
Yeah, I think we might all know who that ball boy was, but I'm not sure I'm
allowed. He was man of the match.
You what?
He was man of the match, wasn't he?
He was man of the match. His dad's very proud of him, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was with his dad after.
Oh, good. Well, I'm not sure we can say who it is, but yeah, fair play to him. Let's go into a few individual players then. Gary, you mentioned Awoniyi. You've lobbied for weeks and weeks that they have to start a striker. And one, he's very rough around the edges, but we saw the value of him, didn't we, in this game?
Rough around the edges, I always say strikers are the ones on the pitch who need consistency more than anybody in selection terms, because it's a sharpness thing up front, and if you're only popping up now and again, you're expected to score because you are a striker, and that puts a little bit more pressure on strikers when that happens. I'd love to see him be given a run, get his Premier League fitness right, and I think it was probably not a good thing to leave Brennan out. I think he needed a breather. I think he had a lot of stick, unfairly so for me, because he's one lad who never ever shirks responsibility. But the responsibility he has as a striker up there is such a difficult one. It's not easy at 21 years of age to have that amount of pressure on you. And I think with an out-and-out striker on Saturday, it takes the pressure off people, because he is an outlet. He will run the channels. He will back into defenders and try and stand on their feet and everything. And he's an awkward customer to play against. And you asked Van Dijk, did he enjoy himself on Saturday? He'd have said no, I didn't, because he was always on the move. And the one he set up for Lingard in the first half, where he's played him in and the keeper saved it. That's what you get with a striker, because he's direct as well. And defenders hate directness from strikers. They don't care if they're going a little bit short now and again, or they drift here and drift there. But when they're direct, defenders sometimes can't be doing with it. And I was really impressed with what I saw.
I mean, I said Brennan should start the game, to be fair, on the last podcast because of his pacing behind, but it obviously worked well. Just on Awoniyi quickly, Greg, do you feel he has to start the next 3 games before the World Cup now?
He played like the Davies we were missing. We've all been crying out for that strong player like Davies was doing, and he just got it right. And I hope it wasn't just because of the 6 years at Liverpool and, it meant so much. But I feel again like something really started with him on Saturday. And yeah, of course, he's earned his starting position now. And players like Brennan are going to come on and do a fantastic job in a different role now, maybe. So, yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on the other 2 in the front 3, Gary? Because Lingard, he hasn't done a lot, but I thought he had his best game since the Spurs game. He looked a lot more energetic. Do you see him making progress, and Gibbs White in a similar vein? I thought Gibbs White worked really hard on the day. Yeah,
but that's a given. If you can't work hard in a football match, you shouldn't be out there. That is the basic criteria for playing professional football. You work your socks off, the old cliche, for 90 minutes. And if they don't do that, they shouldn't be in the team. The rest comes as a bonus. And, he was producing things that, we know he's capable of. Lingard, I still think is searching for his best. We know he's better than what we've seen at times so far. And hopefully this could be just a spur for everybody individually, as a team, as a squad, because it was just incredible to watch. I mean, I thought on Saturday, you talk about, the football coupons you do on, the bookies or whatever. And I was wondering how many people would say that, Forest going to lose, by a considerable amount of goals after Liverpool's performance against Man City, because they totally dominated Manchester City. It was one of the Liverpool performances we've become to, know and expect. And that's the trepidation I went in with a little bit, thinking, well, if they play like that, they did against Man City, we could be in trouble here. But, we weren't frightened of that. If you're frightened of that when you go out, you shouldn't be out there as well, because, you give the opposition that incentive then to dominate. And we didn't do that. We didn't let them dominate, despite the quality they have in their side. Mo Salah, hardly had a kick. And I was watching him. He was trying everything he possibly could. He's one of the most mobile players, you can watch. He's always on the go. He's always wanted to be involved. And we just didn't let him. And I think that's, real praise for the back, the back line as well, because, it's difficult. We've kept 2 clean sheets now in the Premier League, and that is pretty good going. Away at Brighton, at home against Liverpool. And that's what you build on. Brian Clough always used to build on clean sheets. And, they're very, very important, especially with our goal difference as well. And, the next 3 games, who knows?
Yeah, I agree about Lingard. I think he is searching for his best still, but it felt like a step in the right direction in terms of he looks more of a threat than he has done. I thought he did well. I mean, we should talk about midfield, Greg. Gary said there, or you said earlier about the pressing. Temps his favourite theme, but as soon as that ball went into midfield, Kouyaté, Freuler, or Yates was straight on whoever it was. Fabinho had a nightmare, didn't he? And Curtis Jones struggled as well. That was that kind of the essential element to the win, do you think?
All three of them are brilliant, and I do think we did win that midfield battle. Clearly, there's that fantastic picture now, which is going to go down in history of Yates being surrounded by four of their players trying to get the ball off him, and then there's a similar one, and I can't believe I'm saying this, with Messi doing the same thing, and it just shows like the difference in a week. He was getting slated again online, and now people are saying how far can he go and how good can he be for us, and. You know,
hey, you do realise now you've created a monster, Messi and Yates.
No, it wasn't me. I'll send it you. It wasn't me.
He's going to live on that now for the rest of his career, isn't he?
There's a brilliant photo. And I just think we're finding the players now, the starting 11, but also the substitutions, the ones that came on. Every single one of them, you thought, oh, that's a starter. That's a player that, you know, is going to come in and make our team even better. And giving us that confidence now, like I say, especially at home, I just thought they did a fantastic job, and the players that came on did a brilliant job as well.
I think Joe coming on, Joe Warren came on, and I thought when we're 1-0 up, and all of a sudden we brought on defensive sort of players. I thought, oh, here we go, we're going to encourage them on. If this is Liverpool, it could be a pensive last 20 minutes or so, and it certainly was. That was worse for me than the playoff final. I couldn't believe how nervous I was in that last 20 minutes. I couldn't look at the set pieces. Didn't see the save of Henderson until I saw it later on television. It was one of those games where you just thought, please, just let us hang on, let us win this game. But hey, hold on a minute. The other end, let's not forget Allison and James Milner.
Yeah.
What a block that was, and what a save he made as well. And it baffled me. I thought Milner was their best player. Especially first half, everything was coming through him down that right hand side, and they took him off. I was delighted they took him off because even at his age he was a threat to us. And I'm glad Jurgen Klopp took him off.
Just quickly on set pieces before we scrub. I mean, it's an interesting tactic not to mark Van Dijk from a view of them, but it works on the day. Klopp afterwards, I don't actually disagree with him. He said Liverpool should have scored at least 2 goals, but you just need that bit of luck and that brilliant save from the goal in those teams.
So should we. It's all right saying we should have scored. Yeah, so it's all right. He said, but to be fair, Forest should could have done as well. You've got to equalise that out.
He didn't though, did he?
No, but
he wouldn't, would he?
Right for the header.
Yeah,
I think he thought he was offside because he was
the one across goal. This is yeah.
I'm saying that's the pressure of the crowd on him the whole game. He just couldn't handle it. So, done all these Champions League games, but City ground's a different level.
Yeah. Let's go back to Yates, and I'll talk about Kouyaté in a minute. I mean, to me, Yates, he's perfect for a midfield 3. And if he just plays the Ryan Yates way of get about people, win the ball, pass it forwards, but not pass it fancy. I mean, he's a solid Premier League player, isn't he, Gary, if he just keeps doing this?
Not everybody has to be, this massively creative midfield, Gundogan sort of, product. There are, fantastic Wolves. Is it Podence? People like him. There are players in there, who aren't of the pedigree of the top teams, but they're so important to their teams. And it's a learning process for him. He's playing in the Premier League for the first time, and it's a hard learning curve because if you get it wrong consistently, you're going to get left out of the team, and it's fair play to him that he's taken everything on board. I'm sure Steve's telling him, and he's worked on what he thinks he needs to do, and you saw all that came to fruition. I think the one thing that he'll be disappointed with, not on Saturday, but the chances that have been coming his way that he's not quite taken advantage of. The headers, which he's normally so good at. Just hit the target instead of trying maybe to be too precise in trying to do it. But overall, on you're looking for a captain's performance, and he gave that on Saturday. In spades, really.
Yeah, there's a question from Richard. I can't find it in the comments. I had lots of comments. saying Southgate's got to name a 55-man long list for the World Cup. Could Yates be on it? I mean, I think that's out of reach at the moment, isn't it? Because he's.
I think I might still be on that.
It's the 1981, yeah.
Not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's England quality yet. He keeps proving doubters wrong, doesn't he, Greg?
I'm so glad you said yet.
Well, he keeps progressing. I mean, it's a big challenge to reach that level. I can't personally see it, but he keeps proving people wrong, doesn't he?
The usual suspects who you like to engage with about me on Twitter, I had a bet with them that Joe Worrell would make the England squad within 5 years.
How many years ago was that?
Well, end of last season. It was the Liverpool game last season.
Oh, okay.
And I want to add Yates to it. I think he's just proving every single person wrong, and he'll keep going. And it's not all about the skill. It's not all about, that flair. Sometimes it's just a level head, and you just never know. You never know how far he's going to go. We've been proved so wrong over the years.
To interject here to say you're mad.
No, it's not that. What gets you an international call-up is consistency. And that's what he's got to get into his game in the Premier League. Nobody gets in any international side if they're not consistent. I always hark back to David Platt's comment when I played golf with him once. Great players don't get better; they get more consistent, and that's one of the most intelligent, simple things I've heard in football. And he's up against the midfield players. You look around. There's a lot of talented midfield players around, young players in this country, and who's to say he can't if he keeps learning? You have to learn every game. You don't just learn in one game, because every game becomes different. And we saw the 6-0 against Manchester City. We saw us get beat 4-0 at Leicester. And now, they go and beat Wolves 4-0. It's Leicester were always going to, you thought, at some point, perk up. Unfortunately, they did it again yesterday and put us back down at bottom. But, it's that is one thing in any profession you do. You try and get the highest possible place in your profession. And the highest in football is playing for your country. And anybody who's lucky enough to do that, will tell you how difficult that is. But, never say never. If you're in form and you're consistent, then, managers will start looking at you.
Yeah. I mean, for me, he should just focus on consistent performances to nail his Forest place right now. But, yeah, he's on the right track. Just finish off midfield. Is Freud a bit underrated, Gary? I was critical of Freud after Brighton, but he was very good here. And him and Kouyaté, they were a good balance, weren't they, alongside Yates in this game?
I think they were, because of the difference in position, not significant difference in position. I think when I watched against Wolves, we sat back a little bit too deep and found it very difficult when we did get possession to then break. But on Saturday, straight from the off, we were, I think, 3 to 5 yards further up the pitch on the front foot from the start, from the first whistle. That's what astounded me more than anything. I thought, hold on a minute, we're 5 years, maybe 5 yards further up here, and that's what stops teams playing. If you sit back 5 more yards, teams like Liverpool will just come onto you continually because they're that good. But if you don't allow them to, you're brave enough to do it. And I think that selection was a brave selection from Steve Cooper. I really do. And, I think he's got to take an enormous amount of credit for changing things as he did. It was difficult to leave Brennan out because, what we saw last season and what he's achieving with Wales. But I think it was probably right for a breather at that particular point. And he will only get better from that. He came on and caused problems. We saw how dangerous he was when he came on. There's just a lot to be thankful for from that performance.
This comment made me laugh. You've gone Paul McKenna today, Greg. I don't know what it is, the hair, the beard, but everyone's saying, as usual, you look like Scott McKenna, but it's definitely there today.
Got to get down the gym a bit.
For people listening on iTunes, it's Scott Stevens put Scott McGregor, MGGREGGA. So there you go, made me laugh anyway. Let's keep going backwards through the team into defence, which featured Scott McKenna, not Greg. Dropping deeper, Greg, it feels like it's kind of nullified all those worries about Steve Cook's pace, hasn't it? Because there's not these vast open spaces behind them anymore.
What a cross. I mean, Steve Cook and McKenna were just brilliant. Like, McKenna played that well, but there were so many other good performances. I've not seen him mentioned much at all. And Obviously, Cook did that unbelievable assist for the goal, so he rightfully got all the plaudits. But both of them just did so well against one of the supposed best attacking forces in world football. And, you know, a clean sheet against them. Those two are both on the man of the match list, aren't they, for me? Some of McKenna's headers he does from like almost impossible angles just to get it cleared. And yeah, like you say, Cook's pace was never an issue. A perfect ball in that's going to be shown for years and years and years. So both of them just fantastic.
But you know why that is the pace issue? When you're pressed up further up the pitch, it's more difficult to have that pace used against you as a defender. If you're, you know, a little bit deeper, I think people can play around you, through you a little bit easier. But the midfield made it so difficult for them to exploit what people have said, our lack of pace. And can I just say how tremendous that piece of work was from Cook? The first touch, forget the cross a minute, the first touch was a striker's first touch because it came to him at a really difficult angle. And his first touch was brilliant. And what I liked, I think, had that been a midfield player or a striker, he might have not done what Steve did. Steve just played it right across into the danger area where he thought straight away. Didn't take another touch, could have done. He just smashed it into an area where it was going to hurt the opposition. I think a striker or a midfield player would have maybe tried to be a little bit clever and take somebody on, and the opportunity's gone. That's how important it is. When you get in that area, I've been harping on about this, don't even look up. You don't need to pick anybody out. If nobody's in there, that's their fault. You put it in an area where you know your teammates should be, and you've done your job. And he did that, and that caused so many problems. And, you know, Awoniyi, it was his first shot that came back off the post, and he was there to follow it up. You know, that's instinctive. That's what strikers do. They expect the unexpected. And that was unexpected, but worked beautifully.
Just finishing off the team then. I mean, I was critical of the Serge Aurier signing. I didn't think they needed it, but, you know, he proved me wrong in the last couple of games. Have they cemented those two fullbacks now, Greg, or does Renan Lodi come back in and maybe Williams drops out, or is Williams still a long-term successor? I guess it's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I honestly don't think they've cemented anything because they've all got a lot to prove and they're all chomping at the bit to get in that position. But they both did well. Nico had one of his better games for us. I think that, and he really did play well. So, yeah, if those two are to start the next few games, delighted. But the other options can come in as well, and they're still doing a very similar job. So it's a great predicament for him. A complete sit on the fence on that one.
Just a quick word on Henderson then, Gary, to give everyone a word. Not just that save at the end, but generally, I thought he had a really good game. His kicking's still a bit dodgy, and he's a great wind-up merchant, isn't he? Go on, you laughed at my comment about his kicking.
Yeah, he's not the greatest, you know, distribution. You know, 2 or 3 times, I think he's kicked it straight into touch, but you don't mind that because it's not costing you a goal. What's going to cost you a goal is if somebody don't pick their centre half up and he heads it like Van Dijk did, and he makes a brilliant save. That's what goalkeepers do. You know, that's what goalkeepers always got paid for. Peter Shilton wasn't the greatest kicker of a football, you'll see. But my goodness, he was the best goalkeeper in the world because he did what he was paid to do. You know, stop the ball going in the back of the net. And I think there's too much pressure on goalkeepers to be, you know, distributors because, you know, this is no disrespect. You're a goalkeeper because you can't score goals. You're not a striker. You're a goalkeeper because, you know, it's a position that is specialised. Every kid wants the glory of being the goal scorer, but goalkeepers are so important, as anybody will tell you. And
I think he's got a phone call. We'll come back to Gary. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
We'll come back to Greg then. Just on Henderson, lastly.
Yeah,
you love him in the ground, don't you? Because he winds everyone up.
I've even made a little list on him. I loved the fact when he went into the crowd at the end. It's hilarious watching that steward trying to push him back in, thinking he's one of the fans. Bree Samba giving him credit online for playing the way he does in certain situations, which I loved. And then my mate Faz, when we were in the pub after, he got a message off his Italian mate, Fran, who isn't a Forest fan at all, but I'm going to read it. And he said, I watched the whole 95 minutes. Great match, played with heart and all the energy Forest fans didn't stop singing even for a second. Henderson is not a keeper. He is an octopus. just the perfect game. And I thought that's what this team did this weekend. They had the whole world's eyes on them, and they performed so well. And you're getting messages off that who people who aren't Forest fans just giving credit to them. And I hope they see some of that stuff. And I hope now they've got all week for the next game to prepare for it, but also enjoy what they did and take a hell of a lot of confidence from it.
I'll tell you what as well, Greg, what I'm thinking about Henderson again, what he does when he does kick it, before, I think Goldie, he probably was a bit reticent because it kept coming back because none of the three lads up front could head it or would head it. You know, with all due respect, Brennan, you know, and Lingard and whoever was up there, it kept coming back. We didn't win much in the air. But with Awoniyi in there, he wins his fair share. And if he doesn't, it's not a clean header for the defender. Hence why it was so important that we were further up the pitch as a team, because we're picking the second balls up. You know, purely because he was making it so difficult for, you know, Van Dijk and Gomez that, you know, that's why Yates was, I think, dominant, because he was ready for that second ball, you know, and he was on the front foot thinking, well, yeah, my teammate's got a chance of winning this. Whereas before it was coming straight back all the time. And that puts you on the back foot. When you've got somebody who can head it up there, even if it's not clean, you know, it comes off somebody, you know, he gets a touch, it comes off Van Dijk's shoulder, and then Yatesy or anybody else in midfield pounces on it, and then we're on the front foot straight away. That is the difference. People may think, oh, well, what's he talking about? But believe me, that is a massive difference when somebody is actually just winning things, not cleanly all the time. You don't need to. But just making it difficult, because you know then you can gamble as a midfield player and say, right, I can be first onto this. And the number of times that happened, I thought, in the game was tremendous.
Just on what you were saying there, Greg, about spirit and belief. I mean, I was told they were given 2 days off after the game, but the players said to the manager they don't want it and they might be in today. So that shows, if I think that's right, I'm sure it is. It shows there's a bond there to me. So I hope that's right.
Hey, there's the one thing that's changed from our day. If the gaffer said to us 2 days, I'll be down the pub for 2 days. Yeah. How very professional. You see, that's where when Steve and his backroom staff first came, they came out with us to, you know, to ask about how we did it in our. Yeah, I'm sure the drinking culture wasn't part of what, you know, they were taking on board going forward. But yeah, I do like that attitude. But I would have still preferred the 2 days off. We'd have been in Callum Law with the gaffer, you know, we'd have been in Spain by now.
Oh dear. Let's talk about the Arsenal game then. I mean, I watched them yesterday against Southampton. They look blinding for about 20 minutes, but then they look very jaded for the last 20 minutes. They've got PSV on Thursday in Europe. I guess they'll rest a load of players, but I mean, it might be a good time to play them. Greg, you're going to be optimistic. Can Forest nick something there?
Yeah, it's a great time to play them. And I'd forgot about the Thursday night games they're battling through. And that's important to them because that's a potential trophy. So I don't think they'll rest too many. And they might decide that they can rest a couple against lowly Nottingham Forest on Sunday, which is going to give us another boost. But it is, I keep hearing the word free hit. And I don't think it's so much a free hit, but it's another really good chance to put in a performance to take us into these home games. So I'm excited to be down there. I can't wait.
It's not a free hit in a sense, Gary, is it? But there's a lot less pressure on the game. You can go there and play whatever tactics you want now, and you've got that Liverpool result to back you up and give you belief. How would you be viewing the game as a player?
One that, you know, after the Liverpool game, that we can go and maybe, you know, surprise people and get something out of it. I just hope he starts with the striker, though. I hope Steve starts, you know, keeps probably the same team, because there's nothing wrong with that starting 11. So, you know, just go with the same frame of mind, you know, the same belief that you can beat one of the top teams or, you know, stay with them. And yeah, it's an away game. Everybody's expecting Arsenal to win. And that puts pressure on them a little bit. I think you saw that at Southampton yesterday. Everybody thought, I tell you what, the big two games on the coupon would have been Liverpool beating Forest and Arsenal beating Southampton. You know, 2 away games, and both went down. We won and Southampton drew. That's football. And if you believe that you can do that, not just on a one-off basis, I don't think that's just a one-off for us. I think that's the best performance I've seen from us this season. without a doubt. You know, the Tottenham one I thought was, you know, tremendous as well. I thought that was the best one before, not the West Ham one maybe, but the Tottenham one. I think we should have won that. It was only a guy called Harry Kane stopped us. But, you know, I think we see the potential now of what we've got at our disposal, what Steve's got at his disposal. And he's got, you know, Sam Surridge on the bench. He'll come on and work. He's got, you know, Brennan came off. He's got, you know, I always forget his name, Dennis. You know, he's got so many good options coming off the bench now. And I just think Awoniyi deserves a run of games in the side now, you know, just to prove to people that, you know, he is, you know, the one that can make a difference, because he certainly did on Saturday.
I mean, if they do lose to Arsenal, Greg, as well, it's not the end of the world, is it? To me, I know Gary won't agree with this, but the focus to me is sort of on those Palace and Brentford games to try and get, well, 6 points before the World Cup, maybe 4 points.
Yeah, the difference between, you know, the Brighton game, how we played from the back so often and it was very nervy to watch, and how we tried to get it up a bit more at home against Liverpool. I think we do what we did against Brighton and against Arsenal, it's going to be a lot more nervy to watch, because they are going to be on it just that second quicker than Brighton were. But we've proved on Saturday, you go into every game now thinking we can get something, because what's the point in not? You know, that was just such a famous day on Saturday, and a lot of people were writing us off before it. Some of our own fans were, and I think you've got to learn, if we're going to be in this league, let's enjoy it. Let's go in thinking we can get something from every game, because it does happen. You know, these teams that come up do get results away from home against the big six, as they are at the minute, and why not? I just think it could be another good day. But I think, you know, 5 points, 6 points from these next 3 games, it's not impossible.
How do you see it at the bottom of the table, Gary? Because as you already said, Leicester battered Wolves, Leeds look like they're struggling. It's very tight at the bottom. Eventually a pack's going to emerge, isn't it? But at the moment it all looks very tight.
But then Villa batter Brentford. Where did that one come from? You know, we got a point against, you know, we got a point against Aston Villa, who also drew with Man City. So they've drawn with us, they've drawn with Man City, and they've just beaten Brentford 4-0. So it shows maybe what a good point against them that was. But the Arsenal game, I would, as a player, after that performance, I would have been looking so forward to going down to London, because, you know, it's a place you want to go, because they were always the top teams down there. And, you know, they deserve to be top of the league at the moment. You know, it's not a fluke. And it wasn't a fluke that we beat Liverpool on Saturday. People might think it was if they didn't see it, but it wasn't. So those 2 factors, I'm sure Arsenal will be looking at, and Arteta will be saying, do not take this for granted, because, you know, they deserve to beat Liverpool. And it's a happy place to be. It's a happy place to be involved in now after that result. And you've just got to go and try and take advantage. It'd be interesting to see the team that Steve picks, but I hope it's the same. I hope it's a positive one. And, you know, that will give those players who played Saturday so much more belief going into it if it's the same team. Unless there's an injury, I don't think there's any point in changing it.
I guess, Greg, did Forest need a day like Saturday as well to feel like a full part of the Premier League, to spring that shock and to make that statement?
You look at the league table, if we'd have lost that game, we're sat on 6 points, and out of it's on 11 points, and it's dire and it's grim, and we're thinking, God, we've got to go to Arsenal. And then those 2 home games, that win was so massive for us. And although Leicester won and whoever won, the pack at the bottom's tightened so much more now. We're not Forest are going down and it's against all the others. Now we are right in that, and we sort that goal difference out, and it's going to start going for us. And it's just like previous seasons with our team. You know, this is unprecedented, the amount of players that we got in, but they've started to click, they've started to gel. We saw the battle at Brighton, and then showing what we can do at home against Liverpool. Now teams, I think, are going to take notice a little bit more of how we can play, and we're full of confidence.
I mean,
again, the one thing that stands out, and I will say this all the time because I'm an ex-striker, you play a striker, he gives you a chance. You don't stay up in a league if you haven't got somebody who is going to be a nuisance or score your goals or, you know, create things for other people. And the first, when he comes in, he did it against West Ham. It was a fluky goal, but you don't get a fluky goal unless you're there to fluke it in. Go back to the Tottenham game. We should have. Lewis Grabban was at the game on Saturday. I said to him, if you'd have been playing against Tottenham, we'd have won that game. Because he would have been there for those 3 fantastic crosses. That's how important an out-and-out striker is. He gives you a chance. If you give him the service, like that ball from Cook, he will do what he does. Any striker will. And it's so important. I know Steve's been trying to find the right blend, the right formations, the right people in the right places. But I think Awoniyi now is just, he'd be the first one on my team sheet.
I suppose the thing for me about Forest is, of the teams at the bottom, they feel like they've got a higher ceiling or a quicker progression of where they can go to, Greg, because they've got all these new players that to me are good individual players, Premier League quality players, but it was such a challenge to meld them together, and it still is such a challenge. But you look at those other teams, there's a lot of teams with issues, and if Forest can just solve theirs by the other side of the World Cup, I still feel pretty optimistic they can stay up.
We just didn't know each other as much as I was full of optimism. You look back at August and that team didn't know each other. You look to what happened on Saturday and you've got Jesse Lingard on the touchline for the last 10 minutes, waving and getting the crowd going and just being completely involved in it. Biacone, exactly the same. These are players like that aren't on the pitch, but are as invested as every single one of us were. A bit like some of the players from last season, and it makes such a difference. And you see them, you were on about, Gary, how you'd be off. I saw Lingard and a couple of them went down to London Saturday night, and they're clearly gelling. They're mates now. And I think, in my mind, that's going to make things a hell of a lot better. And you get the squad working together, and it's going to be an easier season for us.
I mean, a big moment in the season, do you think, Gary? Because they probably need to back this up now, don't they, with a couple more results before the World Cup and not make this an isolated win.
Well, if it is a one-off, people will just hark back to it and say, well, what's the difference between, playing Liverpool and playing if we don't get anything against Palace or Brentford. And that's down to the players now. It's a mental thing. If you've got the mentality to go and beat Liverpool and keep a clean sheet against Liverpool, then, after their win against Manchester City with Haaland playing for the full 90 minutes and not hardly getting a sniff in that particular game, then you've done something very, very good and very, very right. And if you can't build and get belief from that performance, then you never will. And, you take the same things into the next game. Yes, you're playing against different players, maybe a different formation. But if you're doing what you're told to do and, what was obvious on Saturday, the game plan was there, then... I think that's the beauty of Steve. I've been down to watch training, on a few occasions, and it's so impressive the way, he goes about it, and, the players responds to, what he wants to do and how he wants to train. And I think now with the World Cup coming up, the amount of time he's going to have to spend with the players on the training pitch is going to be so beneficial for everybody. And if we win 2 out of 3 games, then that'll be incredible. Because we're not getting cut adrift at the moment. There's a group on 9 now, and the mid-table doesn't look that far away. And like you've said, it's easy to get dragged down into that if you start playing badly. Momentum is a wonderful thing in any sport. And if you can't get momentum from beating Liverpool and keeping a clean sheet, you'll never get momentum. And that the message Steve is putting through to his players. Because, you saw the pure joy and elation from every player in a red shirt on Saturday after that game. They were absolutely exhausted and understandably so, because mentally and physically, they put so much effort in. I'm always a big believer in the mental side rather than the physical. Physical, it's a given. You have to do that. But mentally, keeping yourself concentrated is so important at the highest level. I've said it before, because if you don't, you get punished by the best players in the Premier League because you switch off for an instant. That's all they need. And we never switched off. Yes, we could have defended set pieces a little bit better. But I watched their quality from the set pieces, and it was so good. Sometimes it's so difficult. It's virtually impossible sometimes if the delivery and the quality is as good as we saw from Liverpool. So, yeah, you can say, well, it wasn't that good, but it was that good from Liverpool. But what we did do, we reacted when the ball, ricocheted about in there. We got there first. Henderson made the save. Our players responded quicker than theirs afterwards. That's what I mean about, never switching off. And I think that particularly impressed me as well.
What kind of group are they when you go and watch them train in terms of energy, noise, enthusiasms? They look like a struggling team or not?
Well, I just go back to when when I played it everywhere I went. I was lucky to, have, the banter was always there. It was allowed, and they're having a crack and really enjoying it, but knuckling down and doing the right things at the right time. You can piece it all together and do all that within a training session, and it's nice to see that camaraderie. That's people say to me, what do you miss more about the games? About playing, and I said, well, the camaraderie, more than anything really. And I think there's that down there. I think we saw that so much on Saturday, during, after. It was just a joy to watch, and I stood out there, for quite a while after the final whistle, and just watched what was going on the pitch, and it was tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few weeks ago, Fletch said there was a question: has the manager lost the dressing room? And it was impossible to say, but I think we see now he definitely hasn't, and they're 100% playing for him and buying into the projects. That awful football term, but they're certainly well behind him. I think we'll leave it there after 46 minutes. Loads of people watching along. Any other business, Greg, before we go? Any final comments?
Yes, I've got an AOB, if that's all right.
An AOB. If this is hawking merchandise or something.
No, it's not. It's good. It's feel good. My friend Sam Perkins, diagnosed with MND in 2019, set up his own charity, local charity, raised over 100 grand so far. And I just want to give him a shout out because he's just been nominated for a Pride of Rushcliffe Award. So, massive respect and well done to him.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. Well
his
done,
T-shirt's behind there as well. So.
That's a fair enough AOB. I'll let you have that one. Very much so. Gary, you've got to go and unpack some furniture.
No, I've got to go down the tip now.
Never stops.
To get rid of. Yeah, I know. It's just it's a major job at the moment.
Well, I'll let you go. Good luck with that. Thanks for everyone.
Sorry, I made you late.
No, it's fine. God, you give us your time. A club legend. Bloody hell, can't complain about that. Right. Thanks for everyone who's watched along. Loads of comments, and I think everyone enjoyed it. Lots of good chat in the comments. Some interesting ones just dropped in. I'm going to have to delete when we finish. So thanks very much, everyone. Greg, thank you.
No, good. I enjoyed it. Cheers.
Gary, thank you.
Greg.
We shall be back maybe later in the week, but if not, certainly after the Arsenal game. Hopefully we're discussing a good result for the Reds. So enjoy your week, everyone, and we shall see you soon.